times because I couldn't help myself, but without yet introducing what I mean by affordance, the term affordance. The term affordance was invented by a psychologist called James Gibson and has, over the last 10 years, been used in relation to technology. What it means is the affordance is the possible actions that are available, so potentially available, for somebody to use a particular tool in a particular context. Okay, so an affordance will depend on the skills of the person using the tool, it will depend on the context in which it's being used, and it will depend on the tool itself. Okay, so affordance is the possible ways it could be used by an individual in a particular context. Does that make sense? So affordance isn't just to do with the tool, the whiteboard, it's also to do with the skills of the tutor and the environment in which it's used, a particular classroom in which it's used. So the affordances will change depending on the tool, will change depending on who's using it and where they're using it and with what students and in what subject area.
Is there a context?
Yeah, absolutely. Affordances can be real or they can be perceived affordances, and we've talked a little bit about our attitudes around particular kinds of technologies and our beliefs about particular kinds of technologies. Okay, so this activity, I'm going to encourage you to look at the affordances of one of the 4 tools that we've introduced today. So looking in more detail at those particular tools. And just in this example, I've used the old whiteboard. And the activity I've decided I want to use the whiteboard for in my classroom is to search and collate resources. So I've got a classroom of 12-year-olds and I'm going to ask them to search and collate resources about the town in which they live, and I've decided that the tool I'm going to use is the whiteboard. Okay. So can anyone give me a positive affordance for that? So what might be a benefit of using a whiteboard for this particular activity with these learners?
Immediate response to what they want to do. If they're all standing by the whiteboard and they're touching the screen and typing it themselves, everybody else can see what they're doing.
Immediacy, great. So that's one positive affordance, immediacy. Okay. Anyone got another positive affordance for that? Yep.
Individuality.
Individuality. How can I make...
Well, they have their own places where they come from, different places where they come from, so it might be interesting to other students.
Brilliant. Okay, so they're going to take what they know themselves personally and share it with... Brilliant, lovely, thank you. Another positive affordance of using a whiteboard in this particular context?
Everyone is at the same place at the same time.
Great, so everyone's together. Yep, lovely. One more positive affordance for this particular? No more. Oh, yep.
We could use whiteboard technology to take a snapshot of the information we've collected.
Great, archiving. I can archive, the results of the lesson. Brilliant. What about a negative affordance? What about disadvantages of using a whiteboard for this particular activity?
No, we do it one at a time, so you have people kids waiting around.
Yeah, there'll be those at the back whispering. Yeah.
You're putting people's learning difficulties on the spot. If you're saying, write your idea on the board and you write it on, then it might be a bit like, well,
Brilliant, yeah, so risk of exposure, yeah. Yeah. Good, oh, we've got a few. Okay. One more negative affordance of using a whiteboard for this particular activity.
the system goes down.
The system goes down, okay, yes.
You'll always get some kids who want to be more active in the activity, won't you?
Yes.
Which allows others to stand back and really not participate.
That's right, there's not a range of different ways in which people can participate in that particular activity, there's just the one way. Good, yeah, okay. Alright then, so what I'd like you to do is take one of the 4 that we've looked at, so Twitter, Woolwisher, Stage or Wordle, and I would like you to choose an activity, a task that they're going to be doing. There's some examples there, but you don't have to use those ones. Examples I've given are search and collect resources, practice skills, reflect and apply, development of concepts through non-textual means, drill and practice, structured debate, collaborative group writing, management of time and resources, there's lots of different kinds of activities tasks. And I would like you to think about the positive and negative affordances. Locate it within your subject area. Okay, I think that's really important. And think about the sorts of learners that you might be working with. All right, so on a piece of paper, and if you need paper, there's some over here, and I can bring you some. I'd like you to choose one of those four, and I'd like you to list the positive and negative affordances within your context, and think about yourself and your own skills too. Okay? So about 10 minutes for that activity.